Yeah, so I spent a lot of time in the Internet of Things, which is all about little devices, usually industrial devices for me. A lot of the challenges that we dealt with were physical access and how you have a single piece of hardware that needs to share multiple potential applications for different vendors on a single piece of hardware. And ultimately, I needed to solve the challenge of container security because containers eventually became the standard for how you ran IoT applications. But when you have only a single piece of hardware, you need to make sure that you have a good security boundary around everything. So I was doing that while working at Google, and eventually I determined that there was no good solution for this on the market, and that's how Edera was born. Yeah, so containers were really more about resource management and about the ease of deployment than they were about security. If you look at C groups and namespaces and the technologies that containers are built upon, they're not fundamentally designed for security. Namespaces were sort of more of an ease of use thing and a logical separation than they were a security boundary. There's a famous phrase that containers aren't a security boundary that a lot of people like to use here at KubeCon, and ultimately what that is about is they weren't purpose-built for that security infrastructure that people want to use them for today. Ultimately, I think you have to go low level to solve those challenges. Misconfigurations are a big one. People who deploy applications rapidly, one of the biggest challenges right now is that if you want to run like privilege mode or something like that on Kubernetes, you're effectively disabling your security. And detecting that is one thing, but that actually creates restriction for people. With AI agents and things like that, you're starting to see a need for privilege mode in production. And how do you do that securely? Today, that's effectively opening up full root access to the system. With Edera, that's no longer the case. Our approach is to go the closest to the hardware that we can get, and really fundamentally think about how we secure our computing infrastructure today. Containers are a concept that's 15 layers up the stack if you really look at it, and what we're trying to do is bring that down, really have hardware understand containers, build technologies that really bring the security and the way we use computing to the lowest layers of the stack. Our vision is really about how we do computing fundamentally, not just about containers, but VMs as well, and how we fundamentally build our infrastructure. Secure by default is sort of a thing that I would say the first iteration of secure by default somewhat failed flat because you have this problem where people want to solve the highest layers of the stack problems rather than the lowest layers. Secure by design and secure by default are all about solving the challenges across the stack. And fundamentally what we're trying to do is solve it no matter where those problems lie. And that includes having to go down to the hardware to solve those challenges. With AI agents, if you want to run completely unrestrained and get the most out of AI, you really need to have a sandbox and the proper security to do that. Edera and solutions like Edera that provide container isolation are critical to that strategy. They provide fundamental security at the lowest layers to ensure that applications are actually properly secured. From there, you can build out additional technologies on top of that. And by the way, security should be about performance as well. Anyone who tells you that you have to reduce performance in order to get security is just fundamentally not thinking about computing properly.